And then it goes,
It went off. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. And boy, talk about special interviews and commonalities and passions and things. What Michael J. Dorfman was showing you a minute ago is he had a copy of my novel. There's a tortoise in my hair, which I always promote, Journey of Spirit, which he just got on Kindle. Not easy to get on Kindle because he's down in Mexico. And here's a guy from Brooklyn, New York. Oh, that's great, Michael. Perfect, perfect.
okay, that would,
Put it down. We're
okay,
good.
okay,
That's
wait.
good. So, Michael, from Brooklyn, born in Brooklyn at 42, and the great thing, the simpatico about Michael and I, is we're both octogenarians. And if you need a dictionary, I'll make it easy. We're both in the 80s, and that's great. So we are brothers in octogenarians who are producing at high levels, and that's very unusual because most of our compatriots, Michael, are sitting on the front porch in a rocking chair with prune juice on the rocks, and we're not. You're not, especially. But Michael is so interesting. Why am I so impassioned about this? Because Michael's written some books, The Longevity Wellness Revolution, a bold new print. It's coming out. That's coming out. What's out? We're going to talk about information warfare, the battle for truth and freedom. Michael is a nutritionist. There you go. Is a nutritionist. He talks. We're going to talk all about the stuff that I live and breathe. And why do I perform? Why does Michael write books and do everything he's doing? At 83. Why? Because it's lifestyle, it's nutrition, it's stuff. Michael, a year after me, we got away. I got away from meat. Anything with four legs. Michael did that in 76. I did it in 75. Beat you by a year, Michael. You know, I beat you by a year. So, but the things we're going to talk about, everybody, this is life. This is this thing up here functioning at such a high level to do things. I mean, I'm interviewing people all over the world, all day long. It functions so why? Because Michael's going to tell you why, and he's written why, and it's so important that it's life. This is life. So, again, Michael's parents came from Russia. My grandparents came from Russia. So there's a lot of, stuff. And the other interesting thing is, at some point in his life, Michael will tell you, he left the United States, settled in Mexico, and that's where he's been for 50 plus years in Mexico. And, I think that's great. And you got your first new women's president down there in Mexico. I think that's great too.
That's right.
Yep. So anyway, my long Johnny Carson-esque monologue is done. So, Michael, again, you can see how enthused I am about this. So, why don't you do a little bit of a background, and then we're going to talk about your journey and the things you've learned and what you write about, and health and nutrition and functioning at full throttle in the 80s and beyond. Take it away, Michael.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Calvin. I really appreciate the invitation. I've been looking forward to it, because we've so many things we have in common here. It's really nice to be here. Uh, yeah, I was born in 1942 during the war. My father actually he didn't have to go to the war because he had two children that he was exempt from going to the war. He became a butcher. So I was raised on meat. My brother too. Both of us are now on plant-based. He was a butcher also, my brother, and I had cousins who were butchers. So we had a lot of butchers in the family. So that's what we ate. We ate a lot of meat and dairy, and I became like really strong. I played football, American football, high school, and I had four scholarships to university to play football. But I was too small. I was only five. I weighed 200 pounds, but I was 5'9", and I actually played the line. So,
Wow.
so anyway, I got, went to school. I went to Brooklyn College. First I went to Bridgeport University, then Brooklyn College. Then I went to Queens College postgraduate 2 years. And then I just dropped out. I just was searching for something else, something deeper inside of me, looking for uh, myself, I guess, searching for myself. And so I left. I came down to Mexico, where I am. I've been here, like you said, 52 years. My wife is from Mexico. I have two grown children. One lives in Sacramento, near Sacramento, Adam, and my other son, Renato, lives in Mexico, not too far from here. I live in San Miguel de Allende, which is a very popular retirement area for expats. We have over 10,000 Americans living here, and
Wow.
it's been voted over the last 5 years. It's been voted like one of the top two cities in the world, favorite cities in Condé Nast and the Travel and Leisure magazine. It's very, very popular, and I play a lot of pickleball here. That's what we do as expats. We do a lot of that. And in 1976, I became interested in Eastern philosophy and religion. And at that time, I decided to give up meat because there are a lot of vegetarians on that side of the world. And so I did that. And I was doing okay as a vegetarian, but I was getting sick maybe once or twice a year. Not very sick, but I would get like flu-like symptoms, congestion, fever, sore throat, and it just was every year. I couldn't understand it. But my brother, who is actually 6 years older than me, he's going to be 90 in October. He had been at that time. This was 17 years ago. He was plant based for about 10 years already, and he was doing very well. And he told me, he suggested that maybe it's the dairy that the reason I was getting sick. But I couldn't give up the dairy because dairy is very hard to give up for a lot of people. I just love my pizza and cheese and yogurt, and I ate eggs also. So I couldn't give it up, and I just kept on doing it and kept on getting sick, and until finally I read this book, The China Study by T. Colin Campbell, who's now in his 90s and still doing very well. So the book China Study, it really turned things around for me. I got convinced that it was at least worth a try to go to give up dairy and eggs, and I did that. And that was 17 years ago, and I haven't looked back since. Stopped getting sick annually like I did. And that was for me, my own personal health, which I'm very grateful for. And that's what I'm thriving now, in my 80s, like Calvin is. But there was one thing that was missing for me. And it was, what am I going to do for others? And so I changed when I switched to a plant-based diet. It was there for 2 years, and it turned out that a friend of my wife and I, Beatrice, she was living in Cozumel in Mexico, as an island in the Caribbean, and she had a heart attack, and they flew her to Merida, which is in the Yucatan, and she had a quadruple bypass heart surgery, and she survived, even though she had a heart attack on the table itself. So she survived, and they sent her home. My wife accompanied her and her son, and a year passed, and she was doing okay for a year, and then she had pain in her arm, and it's one of the signs of problems again, heart problems. So the doctors wanted to see her again. And what they did when she came back, she went back to the hospital, and they checked her out, and they told her that they wanted to put a stent in because the vein that replaced the original artery of the aorta was clogged again. And that's what happens when you just don't follow a good nutrition and lifestyle program. uh, it just repeats itself because you're not removing the cause. So anyway, the problem was that the stent, the vein that replaced the original aorta was too narrow, and they couldn't put the stent in.
Wow.
So they told her that we couldn't, there wasn't anything we could do. And they sent her home, and they told her not to exert herself too much or do too much exercise or even climb stairs when it was, not necessary. But what they didn't tell her, and they told my wife and they told her son, was that she had about 6 months to live. So she came home and they didn't tell her. So, and she didn't know about it. She was just going to do what the doctors said. And I had been already on a plant-based diet, and I was reading books by doctors who were having success in reversing heart disease through nutrition. And one of these doctors was T. Caldwell Esselstyn, who wrote Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. He was the chief of staff at the Cleveland Clinic for many years. He's now retired. He's also in his 90s, but he's still functioning and writing. And so I had read that book, and he was having success because at the Cleveland Clinic, he was a surgeon. He was every year. It was like, here we have we have so much progress in doctors being trained and technology, and how come heart disease gets worse and worse? So he sort of went on another path. He got into nutrition, plant-based nutrition, and he was getting the rejects from the Cleveland Clinic. These were heart patients that couldn't even walk from one side of the room to the other. So these were rejects, and he was getting them. And he had on this diet, and he had a success rate of over 90%. And instead of living, weeks or months, his patients were living 10, 15 years. So this was, to me, an amazing turnaround. And I was just shocked. Because how come doctors don't tell their patients, or at least give them an option, tell them, you can change your diet, you can go on a healthy diet, and this can, maybe it'll help you, but at least you can give it a try. And they don't do that because, and you learn eventually that doctors don't get trained in nutrition. They don't get trained in lifestyle throughout the United States. That's the way it is. Maybe a few hours of nutrition, but that's what it is. So, and one of the things you learn, and I learned, is that so much, these doctors go through the training and they go through their medical school, and what they learn, or what I learned from this, is that so much of what the doctors who are sponsored, and the sponsors and the donators of their training and of their medical school is the pharmaceutical industry. So and what does that mean? Is that, well, now that the go-to treatment for most diseases are drugs. That's what they're number one. And that's when you go to a doctor, that's what they prescribe is drugs. They don't really talk to you too much about you as a person and really get into it, find out what kind of lifestyle you're living. So they just say, okay, go for this drug. And, the doctors, they get kickbacks from the drugs and the drug companies. That makes them, this multi-billion dollar industry that has so much power, of what doctors do. So for me, that was one thing that was very important to learn that. And also I was wondering, it was like, well, if diet can do this with heart disease, are there any other diseases that maybe diet and lifestyle will also help? And it turns out that it's true, type 2 diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, so many different ones. And it's amazing, and So this is what I learned, and this is what when I learned all of this, I just said, I got to tell people about this. So I started speaking at events in Mexico, and and then I would write. I started writing, and I published. This was my first book, which is The Thriving
Right.
Vegan, because I became plant based. I gave up, all animal products, and I published this in 2019. And then that got me into just researching and learning more, and so this is what I do. And now I'm writing the book that Calvin just put up there. I'm in the middle of that, uh, and I do podcasts and I talk about this like here,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm into. I'm dedicated to this, and that we have to pay more attention to our own bodies, and because our body is a miracle, a total miracle.
Correct.
But we've lost that connection
Correct.
because yeah, we've totally lost that connection, and we become dependent on pharmaceutical drugs or interventions, that doctors use, and what happens is that we just lose touch, and we're not learning the truth about how to really become healthy. We don't need drugs to become healthy. In fact, drugs aren't the right road to become healthy, and that's what I want to tell people about.
Perfect. And we're gonna start talking about some of this stuff. By the way, too, just to underline and underscore, before we went on air, listen, I stopped eating. I'm not completely plant-based, but I'm well there. I would have loved to have become a vegan, but my wife came from a long line of meat eaters, and it was a hard thing to ask her to make separate food. Same thing with my mother. So I compromised. I became a flexitarian. That's somebody who doesn't eat anything with four legs. And I'm walking around with zero coronary artery plaque. The last time I had it checked a few years ago. And before we went on air, I said my LDL is 45. My cardiologist laughs because he said you don't have enough cholesterol to even make plaque. Uh,
That's
no.
great.
Uh, I just um we just lost I don't know what it is. Oh, we're back.
They were back again. Yeah.
Oh good. Oh good. I was worried. All right, but anyway, that is astounding, and it just underscores what you said. And one other quick thing. I've had atrial fibrillation for 15 years. I've taken every drug under the sun. I've had enough procedures that both hands, fingers, 10 procedures. And then I decided to experiment on my own under the guidance of my my cardiologists, who are wonderful. I mean, I love them and they're wonderful. And I did some stuff with diet and weight. And for the first time in 15 years, I bounced out of AFib all by myself in February. I intervened on my own. So what you're talking about, Michael, in the real world, because I'm a real guy, I wear a Rutgers hat. I'm a real guy. The stuff works. So, um, uh, and the other thing, and also to support parenthetically, the pharmaceutical industry. I'm a little bit of a student of World War II, and I know Franklin Roosevelt, who got us out of the Depression and got us and made us ready to go to war. An amazing politician. I'm not talking about his politics, but here's a guy who had enormous high blood pressure, which is what caused the stroke, which killed him. And the sad thing about that is, 10 years later, we start coming up with these meds to help high blood pressure. Had he had that, he would have lived 10, 20, 30 more years. He didn't have that. So there are some real positive things, in the treatment of high blood pressure. It's a wonderful thing. I take that stuff and 120 over 68, it's great, and I have help because whatever. But anyway, um, let's um, uh, let's talk about this. This is an interesting question. Are chronic diseases and a weakening immune system a natural part of aging?
Well, I think that the problem is that's what people are led to believe, that everybody gets a chronic disease. And here I live in San Miguel. We have over 10,000 Americans living here, and many of them are in their 60s and 70s, and they talk about this. It's just that's what people believe, and that's one of the problems. You start believing that chronic disease and is natural, and that you're going to get into your 70s and something's going to happen to you. Maybe look at all these diseases that type 2 diabetes, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And but that is the concept that people have, that this is the way it is, and it isn't the way it is. It's the way we've been told. And when you believe that it is, you're going to get a chronic disease, then you get stuck on pharmaceuticals, because that's what the doctors are going to tell. Well, you have this, you have type 2 diabetes, you got to take metformin or whatever drugs you're going to have to take, or you're on you have problems with cardiovascular disease. Even though the causes are definitely lifestyle causes, all they're going to tell you is that you're going to have to manage it. You're going to take this and that, and you'll manage it through the rest of your life. And this goes with obesity, or with the high blood pressure. And to me, it can be done naturally in almost most cases, great majority of the cases. It can be reversed. These are diseases that can be reversed naturally, but that's not what we're told. So it's not a natural part of aging, but people believe it. So what happens? It's really interesting, because the life expectancy in the West, in the United States, hovers around the 70s, the mid 70s. We get to 76, 78 is the life expectancy. Now it's going back a little bit, because we're just, chronic diseases are rampant, and 70% of the people that are in their 70s already have at least one chronic disease. So that's why, as well, if 70% have it, it must be a natural part of aging, but we can't get beyond this life expectancy. But then you go and you check, and you find out that the healthiest and longest living people on the planet, in the blue zones, living 10 to 15 years longer than we are. And it's not a natural part of aging, and they know that. So I don't know. Do you know about the blue zones?
Yeah, I mean, some area in Italy, I know,
Yeah.
they have subsistent garlic and stuff, and yeah, I know about. There's one in Indonesia somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you, let me just talk a little bit about that, because the blue zones, that whole study of the blue zones by Dan Buettner, wrote the blue zones. I think it was around 2010, 2009. He worked for National Geographic. I don't know if he still does. And they sent him for 2 years to find out where the healthiest and longest living people on the planet live. That was his job. So he did that. And the whole idea was to find out, when he finds these places, what are their similarities? Because if there are similarities, then it's something to go with, that, well, maybe we could do the same thing. So he found the 5 places. One is Okinawa in Japan, another one, Sardinia in Italy, Icaria in Greece, Loma Linda in California. That's where the Seventh-day Adventists live, and Nicoya in Costa Rica. So he did, and he found out what are the similarities? So to me, the main similarities is that they were all mostly plant-based. And when I say that, 90% plant-based, in different places like in Okinawa, they would eat some fish. In other places, they eat some meat, but it wasn't big portions, and it wasn't often. So they had small portions, but basically what they ate was plant-based. And for example, in Okinawa, sweet potatoes was the main food that they ate there
Wow.
because they're so healthy. So that was one of the things, that was, the plant based. So for me, it's like, well, I'm going with that. And then they had other lifestyle things that were very important. They had to exercise, but there wasn't going to the gym. It was their not life was natural movement. So they didn't sit around watching TV all the time or sitting around looking at their phones all the time, like we do and our children do, which is not a good sign. They're always moving because they live in rural areas. They don't live in the big cities. But these are the examples of people who are living. I actually there is a documentary on Netflix called "Live to 100: Secrets of the Blue Zones." And Dan Buettner, I think it was either last year or the year before, he revisited the Blue Zones. And this is a four-part series of the documentary. And I really recommend that people watch it because it's really great. You just see these people, what they do and how they live. And one of the most important things is community, their relationship with each other. There's a caring relationships. We're social people, social animals, the human beings, and we do very well in community as long as it's a good and caring community. So that's another thing, and they do also to reduce stress. They do either yoga or meditation or tai chi, just ways to just calm themselves so they don't go through. Plus, their lives aren't as stressful as our lives are, back here in the West. But that's what they do. And another thing that's very important is purpose, a purpose in our lives. And you get, especially when you get older, I am so grateful, and I'm sure you are too, Calvin, that we have purpose. It's like you get up in the morning, you want to get up in the morning and say, hey, it's great to be alive again. I got so much I really want to do today. And that's really important, this purpose, to have a mission or meaning in our lives, whatever it is. I love to write. I love to talk, at different and podcasts or in front of people. But, you like to sing, you like to play a musical instrument, you like to take, care for people, just things that for me, it's like giving back. Maybe that's the way I think of looking at it, is that how do I give back? How can I make people enjoy their lives? What can I do to share what I know and what I understand? And that's, working, and it's my experience. We have, when you get older, I think you forget, and this is a concept that people have, when you get in your 70s or 80s, it's a concept that, well, you're over the hill. What can you do? What can you contribute to society? We'll put you in a home, or, you don't have much to give. And, just, I remember when I lived in Florida for 6 years, I remember that the people would retire and they would go down to Florida and they would sit on the porch for all day long. But there wasn't, that's not what it's all about. We have we never, our brains keep functioning, our brain keeps growing and adapting and changing. This is what we've learned through science, that it never stops. So we have everything in order to really enjoy, like the people in the blue zones are, to live a really productive life between 80 and 100, or there are those above 100. So that's a new way. That's a way we should start looking at it, and not listen to people who are telling us, usually younger people are telling us, oh, what can you do? You're a has-been, or whatever it is. Not at all. We have everything. We have everything inside.
Correct.
We have yeah.
So I have a question, simple question. By the way, I don't know if you watch, I've been taking notes on you. So I'm one of the few interviewers in America who listens to people who he's interviewing and taking notes at the same time. So I got a whole page of notes ready. So Can we get enough protein from plant-based diet?
Well, that's a great question, and that's the most popular question that people always ask people who don't eat meat, and that's what and it's still going on. They were asking that question decades ago, and then and now it's like, I get my protein in the same places that gorillas get there. Some of the strongest animals in the world: gorillas, elephants,
Wow.
horses, water buffaloes. I mean, they're all vegans. They
Wow.
get it from plants, and not only that, the some of the elite athletes in the world today are plant based or largely plant based. I mean, Djokovic, who I think he just retired as the top tennis player in the world, he was plant based. I think he still is, or mostly. The Williams sisters, tennis players, Tom Brady, a quarterback. I mean, he was 90%, plant based. There are so many. In fact, I remember what was it? The Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans a few years ago, they went to the championship game,
Right.
and they had one of the players was a vegan. I don't remember his name. He was plant based, and it ended up that his wife was a vegan cook, and it turned out that 13 members of the Tennessee Titans they went plant based, and they went to the championship game that year.
Wow.
So these, what is it? Patrick Babubian is one of the strongest men in the world. He's from Germany, I think, and he is built like a. I mean, he is built, and he's a tremendous weightlifter, and he pulls trucks and things like that. And somebody once asked him the question, and he gives that as an example. Says, "How do you eating plants? How do you get to be built like an ox?" He says, "Well, I eat the same thing that an ox eats."
Wow.
With your plants,
That is
but there's
so.
a whole list. There's a whole list. Kyrie Irving, basketball player, and you can go into and You can look for champion elite vegan athletes, and there's a tremendous,
Wow.
rock climbers, mountain climbers, surfers, all kinds of. Yeah. So there's not a problem, and I play pickleball. I'm 83. I play four times a week. Usually, I go to the gym twice a week. So it's there is no problem getting protein. If you want to be an elite athlete and you're really going for it, you can get a special diet also from plants. You can go to a vegan trainer, get a diet, or you can even go online, because I've done that. But in general, you get, between 40 and 50 grams of protein you get from plants is perfect. No problem at all. But you know what the problem is? The problem is not the protein. The problem is the lack of fiber. And we had talked about it at the beginning.
Yeah,
You
that was
went
my next
on.
question. How important is fiber?
Fiber is the key. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, uh, fiber is, in my second book, which is on, the book on information warfare. I get into the microbiome, because the studies in my first book, I didn't know too much about it, but then I got more into research, and I found out about the microbiome. And there have been, over the last 5 years, there have been more studies on the microbiome than any other part of the health study. What's being studied on health. There's, like, I think, was it 5 years, 10,000 studies a year on the microbiome. And the reason is because the electron microscope in the year 2007 reached a new level, where they were able to go deeper and deeper into the human body. And they started getting into this whole study of the microbes that we're made of. We're talking about 30 trillion microbes that are within our bodies, that we're swimming in it. And there are more microbe cells than there are human cells in our body. So, and it's part of us. It's on our skin. There are microbes throughout our body. And we're talking about bacteria. We're talking about viruses. We're talking about parasites. We're talking about fungi. We're living in it, and they don't bother us. And so this study of so what I learned, and what's true, is that the favorite food of the healthy microbes, which are the bacteria in our gut, is fiber, and that's what they love, and that's what they do, and they turn into these short chain fatty acids, which is supports the health of our immune system, that supports the health of our body. And so we have to get more fiber, and we need at least 40-50 grams of fiber a day, and the average person on the standard American diet, which we eat in the US, is like 15 grams. So we're not getting healthy, so we're eating unhealthy foods, ultra processed foods and other foods that are high, high fat, and I can get into that. And that's not what that's not what the bacteria love, and that's not healthy. And that's why so many people have problems with their colon. Whether it's ulcerated colitis, with diverticulosis, it's all of that stuff. That's why people have problems, colon cancer. So it all begins in the gut, one of the main areas. And so that's why we're suffering so much. And anti-inflammatory diseases. So fiber is a must, and we have to. And I wanted to get into this. There's so much I could talk about with the thing with the you know what we're eating. Should I continue? Yeah.
Yeah, just
All
go.
right.
I love this.
What is very popular is is meat. It's more and more popular, and whether it's the paleo diet or the ketogenic diet that people are really in. That's the most popular diet, ketogenic. But you look. It's not the what's really at the back of or at the foundation of the healthiest and popular and healthiest and longest living people on the planet. But that's not the only point. The point is these diets are saying, what's important is high fat and low carbs. So if you say high fat and low carb, you all of a sudden you're saying, meat and dairy, animal products, and low carbs mean, reduce your intake of carbohydrates. Why? Because most people are really into losing weight, and carbs make you gain weight. That's not true. It's the bad carbs that make you gain weight. The refined flours, the refined, rice.
You just froze.
Like 70%, 80%, and I can't eat mostly carbs. I eat bread. I eat, just the grains and cereals and vegetables and fruit. And so it's not true. And it's not. And they think, okay, eat meat. It's the ketogenic and it's the paleo diet. That's been our problem from when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we had the what was it called? The Basic Seven. And it was all based on the main part of the diet was meat and dairy and eggs. And then you go into the next stage. That hasn't changed. We're talking about the 50s, 1950s. So we've been eating the same basic thing. It's worse now because of the ultra processed foods that have reached like this high level, So, but it's been the same, basically the same type of diets. And the problem is that that's why we don't get out of our, the 70s as being the age, life expectancy is in the 70s. We can't get beyond that. So we have to make this change. And people who are in their 80s now who are healthy, is like Calvin and myself, we were examples of that.
Correct.
Meat is not the way to go.
Correct. Correct. And it's funny, you were talking about type 2 diabetes. There were diabetes, sometimes it's an F2 disease. It skips a generation, boom. So my grandmother had it, my mother had it. I run because I guess I'm OCD. I run to the hospital every 3 months for an A1C test. And I watch every piece of chocolate. I love dark chocolate. It's loaded with flavonoids. It's very healthy. I'm not going to do a commercial, but anyway, so I'm running to the hospital, and I do my intermittent fasting, and I mean all this. I took my weight down, and I just last Friday, I did my A1C, and I got it down to the lowest it's been in decades at 50 at 5.2. I was thrilled that I had done this. I never got to pre-diabetes. I got the 5.7, which bothered me a little bit, and that's right on the borderline. So I got it down to 5.2, which is the best I've been in a long, long time. So I went out and I bought a couple of bagels and some cake to celebrate.
Okay.
Wow. I worked hard to get it down. It was 5.6 3 months ago, and I just said I'm going to get it down. And I mean, so I'm like you, Michael. I'm possessed with the gifts that we have to learn and to research and to study and to know that this stuff works when you're doing it right. So, a quick question. How is this health book that you're writing now, The Longevity Wellness Revolution, differ from The Thriving Vegan, which was your first book?
Yeah. Well, I think it's sort of a continuation. Uh, what I'm actually we're talking about was uh, I would really like to well, I'm doing in the book, I'm writing about, you know, how we can thrive in the later years. And we've been talking about that, you're expected to get a chronic disease in the 70s, and doctors will tell you this. And we have to go beyond that in order to be healthy after 80. So I've sort of divided life into 5 stages. And I just came up with this. So I divided up into 5 stages of approximately 20 years. So I go into depth. Well, and that's what I'm working on. But the first stage is from 0 to 19. It's the stage of development, of growth, the emergence of our ego, discovery. So this is the first stage. Then from 20 to 39, you graduate college, or you get a career and you get a family, and you have your children, and you're working towards success. From 40 to 59, you're expected to be successful, you're making money, you're establishing yourself, that's all at 59. And from 60 to 79, you're now thinking of retiring, getting close to it. And what are you going to do after you retire? Then you retire, and so many people retire. They say, I'm retired. And now I don't know, what are you going to do when you're retired? It's like, well, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to enjoy my life. It's like, okay, so you give up, you stop working, and then you stop developing, you become inactive. And that's what a lot of people do. And that's one of the dangers when if you slow down. When in reality, you have to continue being active. You can't slow down. And the reason is because the tendency for the body is to slow down because you're getting older. But we have to not allow that to happen. And it doesn't have to happen. We can keep it going for a long period of time, But there's another problem, and that is, so anyway, so that's till 79. And then 80 is the 80 to 100 and over 100 is the rediscovery of ourselves, the finding, our how to thrive in our life, the finding the wisdom that we have of a life of experience, of learning. And this is what we keep on going. And we can just be very active. Maybe we don't have the bodies of a 20 and 30-year-old, but we're good enough, So this is what I'm trying to do. And I became, I took a certified coach in nutrition and health, and I want to coach people into longevity. People are willing to take on the challenge, and people who are saying, okay, I want to go for this new stage of life where I can be healthy past the 70s. But one thing is very important, and this is we have to understand, is that diseases don't appear in your 70s. Diseases are the chronic diseases go back. And people, women get their mammogram, and their mammogram. I think I did. I go off here.
No, you're fine. You're
Oh, okay,
fine.
because I got the okay.
No,
Should I? Should
you're
I? It says return to meeting. Should I do that? Press on
no,
that?
just
No.
no.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay. So women get a mammogram, and what does they say? Oh, we just discovered you have a cancer. It's early screening, so we got it in time. That's not true. It's just got big enough to be, located and seen on the mammogram. Cancers take decades sometimes to develop. My father, I mentioned that during the war. Well, I didn't mention he was a painter because he didn't have to go to the war. He was a painter in the hull of ships. He helped paint the Queen Mary at that
Wow.
time. So, but nobody knew it. In the hull of the ships, there was a lot of asbestos. So he painted there for years, and he at the age of 78, he fainted, and they discovered he had mesothelioma, which is the cancer you get from asbestos. But it took 40 years for that cancer to
Wow.
develop. So
Wow.
it's not that it's early detection. We have to look at early prevention. So we have to understand,
Brilliant.
primarily that chronic diseases start way back. You know,
Brilliant.
uh, type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes because you didn't get it as a child. Now it's changed. It's type 2 diabetes, and children are getting more and more children are getting type 2 diabetes. More the children are getting problems with their heart. It's terrible. And that's what we have to understand. What I'm trying to say is the sooner we start, don't wait till you get into your 60s and 70s before you look at your health. You know, start as soon as you can, and it'll help you. It'll make it easier to make a step into those later years as a healthy person.
Okay. Another important question for me, and I could never get enough of the answer here, and I read about it, once or twice a week. What is your take on vitamin and mineral supplements?
Okay, I think this is where we disagree.
I'm sure we do.
I used to take when I first became a vegan, well, plant based. I like to say plant based because people there. Most vegans are not there doing it for their health. Most vegans are eat plant based because of the ethical part of the animals, that the animals being tortured, and so they're into it for that. But I'm plant based, so I like to say, consider myself plant based more than vegan. But as far as supplements, so I took for 5 years. I used to take 13 supplements a day. I used to go to Florida, Miami to visit, Fort Lauderdale to visit my parents. And I would go and I would go to a vitamin company there, and I would buy, a half a year's supply of vitamins and all the vitamins. And I would do it, and I followed that. And they would come out with a magazine, this company, and I love the magazine. It was a great magazine on health, on articles on health, and I would get it every single month, the magazine. And then I became aware of something, and that the magazine would talk about a disease or a health problem, and they wouldn't give you a natural cure for it. They would have like 2 or 3 pages later, they would give you the vitamin or the mineral that would take care of that disease. And then eventually I said, wait a second, this looks like big business to me. And then I got into the whole studying of the supplemental. I'm talking about vitamins and minerals. I'm not talking about natural supplements. The vitamins and minerals became just like the pharmaceutical industry, for me, a big multi-billion-dollar industry. And that's what we have today. So for me, I gave up many years ago. I gave up taking vitamins and minerals, and I started. And this came out, I think, more than anything from the China study by T. Colin Campbell, because he was talking about reductionism. holism versus reductionism. And I love this. It's this book he wrote called Whole, WHOLE. It's a fantastic book and one of my favorite books. And he gets into this reductionism, which we find medicine in now. It's not a holism. Holism medicine, holistic medicine is like what they do in China, in other parts of the world, where they look at the whole person, not at not at the disease itself. And one of the Hippocrates had one of his sayings: is what's more important than the disease a person has is the person who has the disease. That's when the doctors are really good doctors. They find out who you are as a person in order to find out what you should do. So anyway, he was talking about this, and it made so much sense to me. The idea that the body for 2 million years, from our ancestors way back to the apes, and the first humans, they were, there were no supplements. There were no supplements all the way until a few decades ago, maybe 80 years ago, something like that. So this is what the body loved. The body loves food, whole foods. When you eat, but that's changed because of the power of the supplement industry. I'm not saying that it's, you shouldn't take a supplement in certain cases. Like, for example, vegans, people who eat plant-based, you're supposed to take vitamin B12. Why? Because the B12 comes from a bacteria that's in the earth, but everything is so clean, the food is so washed that the B12 doesn't exist, and it comes from the ground, where animals will eat, they'll get their B12, and people will eat the animals, so they'll get their B12. If you don't eat animal food, then you should eat the B12. So that's what I take. I take the B12, and I also take once in a while vitamin D because I'm a little bit sensitive on my skin, so I don't get much sun. So I take vitamin D, but I'm careful. I don't want to take too much, so I do that. But as far as going back to what I was saying with T. Colin Campbell, is that when you eat an apple, let's say you want vitamin A, you eat an apple. You eat an apple, and what the body does, it takes in the apple, and the apple is a symphony of vitamins and minerals. And the apple is eaten by the body, and the body uses the apple. It'll say, I need this part, and I need that part. I need it makes use of, maybe it only needs, I don't know, 100 grams at one particular time of vitamin A, and maybe later it'll take. So the body knows what to do with the food, because that's what the body has been doing, has been eating food for millions of years. And now we come in and we think that it's good enough. People take, as a supplement of food, and the body wants food. And over the long run, I believe, and I've learned, because I don't miss the vitamins and the minerals, and I just get it from food. And it made so much sense what T. Colin Campbell, he's a biochemist. He wrote about this as far as the reductionism. It's the same thing with reductionism. We have specialists in medicine. We have the heart specialist, we have the lung specialist, we have the brain specialist, and then specialists like a lung specialist says, don't bother me about the liver. That's not my thing. When doctors used to be, they studied the whole body, and before specialists came in. So yeah, but it's the whole body works together. We are a whole body, and the holistic approach is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So anyway, so that's what I got into
Okay.
this whole thing with the
All right.
supplement.
I listen. I do what I do, and I'm comfortable with it. I do my 60 a day. I drink a lot of water. I used to have these great arguments with my mother-in-law. Uh, she'd seen me spending all this money on vitamins, and she then said to me, I was pretty close with her. She said, Calvin, you probably have the most expensive urine in the state of New Jersey. And yes, she's probably right, but you know what? I'm happy with the product at 80. So if it ain't broken, I'm not fixing anything.
Yeah,
Um, Before I ask you the last question of my little thing here, I want to go off topic. I like to
yeah,
ask these. There's a couple of questions I like to ask. Um, and you don't have to answer it. It's cute, and I borrowed this from one of my favorite journalists. So here goes, Michael. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
uh, my mother.
Okay, great. I could jump and say that too. Uh, and that's a good answer. It's funny. You said way back, and I wanted to say something. Way back, I look back now on growing up as a kid, and my grandmother lived with us. She immigrated from Russia, and the entire time, and I listen. I was 13, 14 before she passed. Both grandmothers, and I never asked them a single solitary question about Russia or Poland. I knew nothing and I wasn't moved to ask, and I wasn't
Yeah,
supposed to ask. I was too young. But anyway, but good answer, Mother. Not now, but I can tell you I did some stuff because my mother's picture is hanging there, and she looks at me 12 hours a day or more, and she's smiling at me. And because I'm so spiritual, long story, I know she did come out with the picture once, and I had my cell phone laying on the counter here, and she did type on the outgoing message, which wasn't sent. Um, it wasn't sent. The word mom was typed on this, and I got goosebumps because there was no way on earth the word mom gets typed. I don't have voice activation. So she did come out and she got permission from whomever and typed mom. Strange story, but anyway.
yeah. I wanted to. It's similar because I didn't know you were going to ask me that question, and immediately when you asked me that question, it was my mother, and I remember her. And whenever I say the name Michael, it sounds like my mother is talking to me, and it's like it's really amazing because it causes me to think of her and feel her. And sometimes when I just want to feel her, I just say Michael, and I sound like my mother. It's like it's giving me chills right now. It's
Yeah.
like amazing
Powerful
and
stuff. It's
powerful
powerful
stuff.
stuff. It's very powerful. I've spent the last 10 years exploring spirituality. That's where I wrote my book.
Oh
Talk
God,
about
yeah.
spirituality and things that happen. And it's funny. I was at a when I was writing, there's a tortoise in my hair, a journey to spirit. When I was writing that, I hit the wall. You know about the wall. I hit the wall. I couldn't write for 3 months.
Mhm.
And I was near the end. I just couldn't write. And then this whole thing happened with my mother. And, I talk a lot about spirit and the fact that in an outgoing message to a friend was mom typed. And that was such a jolt of, of, of spirit for me that, that night I started writing again and I finished my novel. So it's powerful stuff. And my message in my book is there are things beyond our realm that we don't understand, and that's just the way it is. But this isn't the end all here. There are just things beyond. Anyway, one other quick off-topic question. What are some of your favorite movies?
I like Forrest Gump. Uh, let's see what else. One. Uh,
Well, that's good.
yeah, I like. In
That's good.
fact, yeah. In fact, he's my. If somebody asked me on another podcast who is my favorite fictional character movie, I said Forrest Gump. I just loved him so much because
Yes.
he was so simple and he didn't care what other people thought of him. He
Uh,
just like
He was pure.
he was him,
Yep, he
and
was pure.
that's what I really loved about. Yeah, yeah.
I actually at times have called myself the reincarnate of Forrest Gump because I wound up Yeah, I wound up. Uh, I remember once I was in New York for a climate parade, and this guy walked by me, and I knew who he was. And I walked up to him and I said, "Can we talk?" And we sat down and we talked on the steps of a church. It was Bernie Sanders who just announced he was running for president.
I saw that picture of you next to Bernie.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so I get in places like that as a journalist or not. And it's like Forrest Gump. So anyway, good answer. The last thing, just tell us how information warfare, the battle for truth and freedom, is important in today's world. You
Oh,
already alluded
and
to it.
it's yeah. So because there's so much information out there, we're being bombarded, and we don't know. It's so hard to tell where the truth and the lies are, and who's behind it, and it's super complicated. So I got in. That's why I got into this book. And I remember when it went all the way back to learning the truth about Vietnam, because I was that was the time I was an activist and learning the truth, because I believed, I believed what I was being told about the government, and then I realized that okay, there's I got to do some more research, because they're not telling us the truth. And then I got into the thing with cigarettes, because the cigarettes, we were told cigarettes were healthy. They even paid, the cigarette companies paid the doctors, and they paid the athletes to tell us how safe it was and how it was good for us. Dentists were it was like, what's going on here? And it was the power behind the information. And now we have that. And then we got into, with Iraq and the WMDs. And, the reason we went into the war. And now it's rampant, the pandemic. And it's like, all I can tell is, tell people is you got to start doing the research, because it's really intense out there. The lies and the information, and that's what I do, and that's what I wrote about when the information warfare, the battle for truth and freedom. How all these industries, the corporation, the governments are trying to control how we think and how we act, and we got to be aware of it, or we're going to be controlled, and we are.
Yeah.
To believe a certain way when there's a whole world of information, and when you start getting into the research, you start finding out, hey, wait a second, this sounds like it's not what they're telling us. And we need to have, people that are more educated and more aware of what's going on, to know where we're heading for, which is dangerous zones are happening right now where we're headed.
Yeah. All right. This was great, Michael. This was great. You are illuminating and you are an inspiration to me because you're functioning at such an amazing level, and the things you do are things that I do. You do them better than me, and the work you're doing and your work and the books, teaching people what the world needs is a great slap in the face. It reminds me of the movie Moonstruck when Cher slaps Nicolas Cage and says, "Snap."
Right. I remember
And,
that one.
and if we all
That was
get slapped simultaneously at the same time to snap out of it, because we have the power in our hands to change things and make it better for a really nice, productive time of our lives. As I'm enjoying, I mean, I love the fact that I get up in the morning and I don't have to drive around the state of New Jersey selling eyeglasses, in which I did for 25 years. I mean, I love that. Now I don't do that, and I do whatever I want to do, and it's productive. But anyway, uh, thank you for this, Michael. Really, and actually, I'm inviting you to come back formally when the longevity wellness comes out. Why don't you get in touch, and we'll sit down and talk about this because I'm a big fan of longevity. Part of some of the stuff I take is a little cutting edge. I don't, go overboard, but I have a friend who was doing some heavy duty research at Rutgers. And when I told him some of the things I was taking, he laughed. Calvin, he said, "Calvin, that's what we're studying. Hyaluronic acid." we're studying that, and you're taking. I haven't taken it for like 15 years. But anyway, please come back. Thank you for your passion and your graciousness. Thank you so much. Don't leave. We're going to do a 2-minute wrap. I'm just going to stop recording. So stay right where you are.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you
Michael.
very much.
Thank you, Michael.